It's past midnight. The house is quiet, but the table is covered in bills. Your checking account is almost empty. Your credit card is near its limit. Your next paycheck is already gone on paper. Yet you keep hearing it. Unemployment is low, the economy is strong, everything is fine. So why does one flat tire, one medical bill, one missed shift feel like it could break you? A nurse drives rideshare after a 12-hour shift. A teacher donates plasma to buy groceries. A tech worker hides collection calls on mute. This isn't bad luck or failure. This is a pattern. By the end, you'll see why millions are quietly going broke and why almost nobody wants to say it out loud. That kitchen table is not an isolated scene. Across the country, delinquencies are ticking up. Consumer debt is at record highs. Savings are shrinking, and more people are swiping credit cards just to cover groceries and gas. This isn't the cartoon version of broke that headlines like to show. It's nurses, engineers, dual-income parents, recent grads, early retirees, all slipping backward in slow motion. Quietly going broke doesn't always look like foreclosure or bankruptcy. It looks like stacking minimum payments, juggling late fees, skipping dental checkups, playing overdraft roulette, and hoping nothing bounces. Meanwhile, the official story cheers strong markets and solid growth, while real households tread water. To understand how that gap opened up, we need to look beneath the headlines. On paper, the story looks fine. In real life, it's breaking. You hear about low unemployment, strong GDP, record stock indices, companies boasting about earnings. Headlines say consumers are resilient. Politicians and executives stand in front of microphones and tell you the storm has passed. But underneath that highlight reel, another set of numbers is flashing red. Credit card balances are at records. More people are splitting basic purchases into buy now, pay later, just to get through the month. Auto loans are stretched longer than ever. Repossessions are climbing. Savings have drained, and fewer households can cover even a small emergency without borrowing. Averages make it sound manageable. Wages up on average, wealth up on average, spending stable. But averages lie. A thin slice at the top adds millions, masking stagnation or decline for everyone else. On a spreadsheet, things look fine. In a teacher's bank account, they don't. Then there's timing. Economic pain doesn't hit the data when you feel it at checkout. First prices jump. People adapt, cut back, then lean on savings, then credit. Only later do delinquencies and defaults show up. By the time the story admits there's a problem, many have lived it for a long time. And the people most responsible for that story often live in a different universe, where higher prices are an inconvenience, not a crisis. It becomes easy to point at charts and dismiss public fear as emotion or noise. That disconnect is the core of the silent crisis. The system declares stability while running on the fumes of household balance sheets. The numbers that get celebrated are not the numbers that decide whether you can afford your life. If you feel poorer, tighter, more on edge, while being told things are good, you're not imagining it. You're seeing something real. The headline metrics are designed to miss. Let's break down the mechanics of that reality. Starting with the simplest one, your paycheck versus your life. Every crisis headline lands in the same place. Your paycheck versus your life. In the last few years, the cost of almost everything you touch has climbed faster than many incomes. Groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, basic services that used to be forgettable are now noticeable hits every month. It's not one outrageous bill, it's the quiet, relentless drift of the baseline cost of existing. Take someone earning around $55,000 a year. On paper, that used to signal stability. In reality, rent jumps, the electric bill is higher, the weekly cart costs more, and that modest raise evaporates. Or look at a dual-income family bringing in $90,000. They are told they're middle class and fine, yet daycare, car payments, streaming, phone plans, co-pays, and food swallow their paychecks. They cut dinners out, cancel trips, pack lunches, and still feel behind. They're not splurging, they're just living. This is where the psychological trap snaps shut. Instead of recognizing a structural shift, people turn on themselves. They assume they're bad with money, that they lost discipline, that everyone else is handling it better. The shame keeps them from comparing notes, from realizing friends and coworkers are quietly fighting the same math. Meanwhile, the game adds invisible taxes. Shrinkflation turns a full box into less at the same price. Service fees appear where they didn't exist. Subscriptions auto-renew. Prices nudge up, convenience charges multiply. Alone, none feel catastrophic. Together, they drag down every budget without serious slack. When wage growth is reported, it sounds hopeful. But those averages are juiced by high earners and bonuses most workers never see. Once you strip out inflation and outliers, many discover their higher paycheck buys less life. And if it were just groceries and fees, it would hurt. But you could adapt. The real break comes because the biggest line item in the modern household budget has gone off the rails. Housing used to be stability. Now it's the cliff edge. For renters, the pain arrives in one envelope. We're renewing your lease, and your rent is going up. Not by a few dollars, but by hundreds. Incomes crawl, rent sprints. A basic one-bedroom has a waiting list, a bidding war, and an application fee you lose if you don't win. Corporate landlords scoop up properties, raise prices in lockstep, and if you can't pay, they know someone else will. For homeowners, there's a split reality. Some locked in low rates years ago and cling to them, unable to move because any new place means a far higher mortgage. Anyone trying to buy now faces brutal prices plus interest that turns a modest home into a lifelong burden. The American dream starts to look like a luxury brand. When people get priced out, they move farther away. It seems like a fix until hidden costs pile up. More gas, longer commutes, extra childcare, another car, higher maintenance. The cheaper roof leaks money everywhere else. Picture a couple who once spent 25% of their income on housing. A few renewals, a rate change, a move, and suddenly 40 to 50% of every paycheck vanishes before anything else is paid. Groceries get cheaper and worse, savings disappear. Medical care is delayed. One emergency becomes a crisis. This is why so many households that should be fine on paper are drowning in reality. It's not lattes, it's the roof. It's the non-negotiable payment that swallowed their margin. So when housing eats your paycheck, most Americans turn to the only tool left to fill the gaps: expensive borrowed money. Once housing and basics chew through the paycheck, the gap in the middle has to be filled with something. For millions of people, that something is plastic and installment plans. The new normal is swiping a credit card for groceries, gas, the light bill, not handbags and vacations. It's clicking buy now, pay later on school clothes, car repairs, and a replacement fridge, because paying in full feels less painful than admitting there's nothing left in checking. These tools are sold as flexibility, as breathing room. In practice, they often become the quiet start of a debt spiral. Here is how it plays out. 1 month runs tight, so you put an extra $200 on the card. Next month, it happens again. The interest rate is 20%, maybe more. You promise you'll catch up, but every statement brings a bigger balance. Minimum payments seem manageable, but they are designed to stretch debt, not clear it. A short-term squeeze silently becomes a multi-year bill. Then life does what it always does. A tire blows, a pet gets sick, hours are cut, you miss one payment, a late fee hits, your interest rate jumps. Now every dollar mostly feeds interest instead of the balance. It feels like running on a treadmill that tilts steeper each month. The same logic sits in the driveway. Auto loans that were 3 or 4 years are now 6, 7. People drive cars worth less than what they owe, trapped in upside-down loans. When anything goes wrong, repossession isn't a shock. It's scheduled. None of this is accidental. In good times, credit is shoved at you, pre-approved offers, instant approvals, zero-down deals. The moment you stumble, the terms turn sharp. Penalties, rate hikes, collections. What looked like options was dependence. But the most brutal costs here aren't always on a statement. Some reach into your health, your family, your actual chance to survive. Some are life or death. It starts on a random Tuesday night. A child's fever won't drop. You try telehealth, cold cloths, the cheap thermometer. At midnight, you're in the ER, signing forms under fluorescent lights, not arguing about networks or deductibles, because in that moment you just want your kid okay. Weeks later, the envelopes arrive. Facility fee, physician fee, lab fee, out-of-network specialist you never met. You have insurance, but your deductible is thousands. Your share is more than your savings. Even families who did everything right are seeing insurance act like a toll booth, not a shield. High premiums, high deductibles, co-pays stacked on surprise billing. You negotiate, set up a payment plan, and medical debt becomes another permanent line on the spreadsheet. It may never show up as a dramatic bankruptcy, but it quietly chokes your ability to handle anything else. Medical debt is a leading cause of financial ruin, often hiding in collections calls, portals, and credit reports people are too ashamed to discuss. Then there's childcare, the other quiet wrecking ball. For parents of young kids, daycare is the price of going to work. In many cities, that price rivals rent or a second mortgage. Families run the math and realize one parent's paycheck disappears into childcare. Often it's the mother who steps back. Not by choice, but because the numbers corner her. Work and hand over your income, or stay home and lose wages, promotions, retirement contributions, benefits. Either way, the long-term cost is massive, and the household grows more fragile. These two categories alone, healthcare and childcare, can erase stability for families far above the poverty line. Families who don't look broke. One accident, one diagnosis, one preschool hike, and the margin is gone. When traditional full-time jobs can't absorb these shocks, the message isn't the system is broken. It's hustle harder, be entrepreneurial, find a side income. Which leads straight into the next problem. The cultural answer to all this has been packaged in one glossy slogan: be your own boss, work when you want, unlimited upside, freedom. The reality looks very different. No health insurance, no paid leave, no retirement plan, no guaranteed hours. Your income depends on an app's mood, on an algorithm you can't see, on surge pricing that appears and vanishes without explanation. One policy change, one shadow ban, one tweak to a pay formula, and your business collapses overnight. Picture someone who already has a full-time job, but it doesn't cover the rising bills. After work, they drive rideshare until midnight. On weekends, they deliver food. In the gaps, they pick up freelance gigs online, maybe posting content hoping for one more stream of income. Every hour has a price tag. None of it comes with sick days or a safety net. What used to be a side hustle is no longer fun money. It is survival work. This unstable income turns planning into a guessing game. Some weeks are okay, others fall off a cliff. It's almost impossible to build a reliable budget, so people lean harder on credit cards and short-term loans to smooth the dips. The interest and fees from those bridges eat into next month's income, so the hustle has to intensify just to stand still. Exhaustion becomes a line item. Layered on top is misclassification. Many gig workers are labeled independent contractors, which means no protections, no unemployment insurance, no contributions to benefits. You're responsible for your tools, your car, your phone, your gas, your taxes. The platforms get flexibility. You get the risk. All of this is sold as mindset. Grind harder, wake up earlier, monetize everything. So when people are burned out, broke and scared, they're told it's not a structural failure, it's a personal one. If you're struggling, you just didn't hustle right. And when everyone internalizes that message, when every financial wound is framed as a character flaw instead of a rigged environment, something toxic starts to grow silently inside people. Money is one of the few crises people still try to hide. You scroll through Instagram and TikTok and see vacations, home makeovers, shopping hauls, new cars, engagement rings, retire by 35 advice, creators stacking cash on camera. Even the relatable content is curated. Cozy apartments, aesthetic meal prep, perfect side hustle routines. You hold your cracked phone, stare at your overdraft warning and think, everyone else is winning. What's wrong with me? That's the trap. You're comparing your full, messy financial reality to someone else's highlight reel, brand deal, or edited spreadsheet. You see their results, not their credit limits, parents' help, lucky timing, or back-end checks. Instead of asking for help, people go silent. They don't tell friends they're behind on rent. They don't tell family they're skipping prescriptions. They definitely don't tell their boss they're drowning. The stigma is heavy. Admitting you're broke feels like confessing failure, even when you're working harder than ever. People worry employers will see risk, relatives will judge, friends will pull back. So they keep dressing the part, posting normal photos, swiping credit to maintain the illusion a little longer. Influencers and some financial gurus make it worse with slogans. Just budget, just cut lattes, just try harder. As if the problem were a $6 coffee, not a $600 rent hike or a $6,000 bill. That message personalizes a structural crisis. It tells struggling people the system is fine, they're the glitch. Silence follows. People don't compare real numbers. They don't see how common this is. The crisis stays invisible until something snaps. Delinquencies, evictions, repossessions, burnout, breakdowns. So if so many feel this pressure, fear, and quiet shame, why don't the people who shape the narrative talk about it honestly? Here's the part almost no one with a microphone wants to spell out. The people who shape the story of the economy have incentives that don't match your reality. Major media outlets rely on advertisers who need you confident enough to spend. Endless segments about predatory systems aren't great for luxury brands, big banks, or retailers. So you get upbeat coverage of sentiment, rallies, and sales. The official tone stays optimistic, Corporations do very well in this setup. High prices, low wage pressure, and revolving debt are profit centers. When essentials cost more, you reach for credit. Interest becomes quiet revenue. Shareholders applaud. Executives cash bonuses. There is no strong incentive to make your groceries, rent, or medical bills truly cheaper. Policymakers prefer metrics that sound impressive: GDP growth, low unemployment, strong earnings, rising home values. These make for good speeches but are abstractions. A record stock index doesn't help at checkout if you don't own stock. Rising home prices are great, unless you're trying to buy. A healthy labor market doesn't mention people stringing together 3 gigs. Behind the scenes, lobbying and regulatory capture help keep essentials expensive. Healthcare, housing, education, finance all spend to shape rules. Any push to cap costs or strengthen protections is framed as a threat to growth or freedom. The result is predictable: opaque medical bills, climbing tuition, constrained housing, multiplying junk fees. This isn't a secret cabal. It's a system that repeatedly protects profits over people, because those at the top are rewarded for that choice. If your life gets squeezed, it barely registers. What almost never gets said is the message you've absorbed. If you're drowning, it's because you didn't hustle, didn't plan, didn't follow the right guru. That story is convenient. It keeps you blaming yourself instead of the design. If you've been made to feel your struggles are a personal failure, understand this: the game is tilted. You are playing on a rigged board. But even on a rigged board, there are moves you can make, ways to protect yourself and push back. That's where we go next. If the board is tilted, your first move is to see it clearly. That starts with brutal honesty about where your money is going. Not vibes, not guesses. Pull the statements. List every bill, subscription, transfer. It's uncomfortable because it turns vague dread into hard numbers. But clarity is leverage. From there, the priority is survival. Housing, food, utilities, essential transport, those get paid first. Everything else negotiates with what's left. Many people don't realize how negotiable some fixed numbers are. Call internet, cable, and phone providers and push for lower plans. Ask medical billing offices for itemized invoices, discounts, zero-interest plans. With lenders, calling before you default can unlock hardship options, reduced rates, or temporary relief. The key is early contact, not waiting for collections. On high-interest debt, consolidation is a tool. If it truly lowers your rate and you stop adding charges. Treat balance transfers or personal loans as a one-time reset, not permission to run cards back up. Use credit like morphine, carefully, for emergencies with a plan to taper. On the income side, the most powerful move isn't just more hours. It's making each hour worth more. Stack specific skills employers pay for. Use strategic job hopping to jump faster than loyalty raises. Look at remote roles that tap better paying markets. Where possible, support or join collective bargaining to raise floors no one can get alone. Then build micro safety nets. Even $50 or $100 set aside is one tire, one copay, one bill that doesn't hit a card. Lean on community, shared childcare, carpooling, bulk buying, mutual aid. It's not glamorous, but it lowers the odds a bad week becomes a catastrophe. These strategies will not fix policy failures or corporate greed. But they can keep you in the game longer, with less panic, and pull you away from the worst of the spiral. And we need to talk about the most important shift of all: changing the story in your head about what your struggle means. Let's say this plainly. Feeling broke while you are working hard is not proof that you are lazy, irresponsible, or bad with money. It is proof that the math you are being handed does not work. Think back to that opening kitchen table scene. Bills spread out, card maxed, paycheck already spoken for. That wasn't a rare tragedy. That was millions of households. Nurses, teachers, line cooks, analysts, drivers, small business owners. People doing what they were told: get a job, get a degree, grind, be smart. The fact that so many end up in the same trap is not a coincidence. It is a pattern built into the system. Once you see that, shame loses some of its grip. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "Why is this happening to so many of us at once?" That shift isn't dodging responsibility. It's refusing to carry blame that isn't yours. Breaking the silence is part of that. Talk about money with people you trust. Not to compare brands, but realities. What's your rent? Your childcare? Your deductible? Your grocery jump? When those numbers are spoken out loud, you see design, not personal defects. Your bad decisions start to look like everyone else's responsible decisions, under impossible conditions. From there, individual moves can link into collective pressure, local organizing around wages, housing, medical billing, school funding, supporting policy that caps predatory interest, expands healthcare, builds real affordable housing, strengthens protections, voting on material issues, asking harder questions at work, in unions, in shareholder meetings. When employers, landlords, lenders, and politicians know people are watching together, the calculus shifts. Awareness won't pay a bill, but it stops you turning every bruise into a verdict on your worth. It protects your sense of self from a system that runs better when you're too ashamed to speak. Millions of Americans are quietly going broke because they think they're alone, because they think their struggle is a private humiliation instead of a shared reality. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you are not the failure here. You've seen how the headlines and stock charts hide what's happening at the kitchen table, how housing, healthcare, childcare, debt, and unstable work quietly strip people down, how shame and curated images keep everyone pretending, while a system built on high prices and cheap credit profits from the silence. The point of this isn't panic, it's clarity. When you see the pattern, you can stop casting yourself as the problem in a story written without you in mind. If this reflects your life, say so. Share your experience in the comments and help make the invisible visible. If this resonated, don't click away and pretend it's fine. Talk about it, plan around it, and refuse to go broke quietly. For deeper breakdowns and real conversations about money that match reality, stay with us.